For over 30 years, we have gone by the definitions given to us as to what is quality. And there have been as many definitions of quality as there are experts on quality. Now let's look at some of them. British Standard 4778 says, the totality of features and characteristics of a product or service that bear on its ability to satisfy a given need. The quality guru Juran put it very simply, fitness for use, or sometimes fitness for purpose. And this is a traditional definition, quality of design and quality of performance. ICH-Q6A adopted this definition. It talks about the suitability of either a drug substance or drug product for its intended use. This term includes such attributes as the identity, strength, and purity. So it boils down to fitness for use. A Maruti car is fit for use, a Mercedes-Benz is fit for use, a Rolls-Royce is fit for use. If you are fit, where is the motivation to become fitter? How do you define? A ballpoint pen does the intended purpose of writing, and a Parker pen does the same job of writing, fit for use. So what's the difference between a ballpoint pen and a Parker pen? This is where we got stuck. And the entire exercise of validation went around this so-called establishing that a product or process is fit for use. To be able to understand where people got it wrong, I like to place before you a real example of what happened in America in the late 70s. British Standard 4778 says, ability to satisfy a given need. Marketing people used to say, identifying and meeting a customer's requirements, meeting his requirements, satisfying his needs. Although Japan had been notorious for its quality in the 50s, Dr. Edward Deming, Dr. Juran, Dr. Schuhart, ever so many luminaries from USA camped in Japan and helped them develop their quality systems and their quality culture, which is best demonstrated by Toyota in their quality system approach. Whatever. It was not just the automobile industry of Japan that was making progress. The ancillary manufacturers were also growing in stature and size and quality. So everybody knows, it's not just the pharmaceuticals who eye the US market. Everybody eyes the US market. And the Japanese manufacturers knew that if they want to really grow and become big, they need business from USA. So ever so many representations were made in the early 70s and mid 70s. If you recall, in the mid 70s, USA and the whole world was going through a recession. There was an oil crisis and there was this Great Depression. And people were not buying and the markets were sluggish. No sector is more sensitive to a slump than the automobile segment. And in America, the automobile segment is huge. So the Japanese manufacturers went across and tried to push their products and ancillaries for automobiles and were not making too much progress. Because the Americans believed if there was anything about automobile manufacturing, they were the last word in it and they didn't have to look around anywhere else. They were the masters of mass production. But the pressure on the bottom line was beginning to show. And the attractive prices being offered by the Japanese ancillary suppliers could not be ignored any longer. Ford was the first to take the plunge. They decided that they would try out some of these Japanese ancillary suppliers. Now, I am speaking specifically about one component in the automobile, and that is the transmission system. Ford decided, since it was running losses and bleeding, that it would, for one of its models, try using Japanese transmission systems along with also the transmission systems manufactured by themselves in their own plant. So initially they said, okay, fine, 25% we will import, outsource, 75% will be made in-house. And if we are satisfied, then because the costs offered are so attractive, then we could perhaps think of reviewing this and outsourcing to a greater degree. This was the picture in 1978, towards the end of 78 and the beginning of 79. So here was one particular model of Ford, and it was in the market. 3 out of 4 of that model used American transmission, 1 out of 4 used Japanese. And in America, it's always a question of impulse purchase. Nobody has a patience like in India to wait for 10 years for a Bajaj scooter or 12 years for a Fiat car. No, or maybe 15 years for a telephone connection. There you want something, and if it is there, you get it. If it's not there, you go and get something else. So the man who did not place the product on the shelf has lost a buyer, has lost a sale. So they're very careful. So here is a person coming into a Ford showroom saying that from my grandfather's days, my family has always sworn by Ford because there the brand loyalties are very strong. So he comes into the Ford showroom and says, I'd like to look at this particular model. And they say, fine, it's available, not like those days, black, 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 but any available. But the customer is asking a very strange question. He is asking, does this model, this particular unit, this particular car, does it have the Japanese transmission or does it have the American transmission? And so the showroom owner very proudly said, of course it is American. So the customer says, hey, listen, is there any here which has got a Japanese transmission? The showroom owner gets bewildered. He says, no, not the moment. Then the customer goes one step forward and he says, hey, listen, this is my card, this is my contact number. If ever you get one which features a Japanese transmission, then please reserve it for me. Just give me a call and be here within an hour and I'll pick it up. Now, if one person says it, you can ignore it. If 2 persons say it, you can ignore it. A time soon came when across the width and breadth of America, all consumers of that particular, who fancied that particular model of Ford, all of them came back saying that, hey, listen, we are willing to wait, but as soon as you get this Japanese thing, give us a call. When feedback like this comes in and the sales are sluggish and these showroom dealers are telling you not to ship any more of that particular model because nothing is moving, naturally an investigation takes place. And so the head of production of that particular transmission of American plant was called and asked to explain. And he just foo-fooed it and says, this is a fancy fad, there's nothing wrong. And so the matter was allowed to be ignored. It went on for a few more months. And this trend kept on increasing. The clamor for Japanese transmission was increasing to a point where people could not ignore it anymore. So they called the plant head once again and asked him to explain. So that person got a little upset and he said, hey, listen, the drawings that have been given to them, they have not designed it. It is our drawings. They are making it as per our drawings. We are making it as per our drawings. There cannot be any difference between the two. It is just some rumor that somebody is spreading. It is malicious. So they decided, why not ask the horse? Whenever a customer comes and asks, why is it that you are showing this deep preference for Japanese? Ask them why. Find out and give me a feedback. So the feedback started coming in. People started saying, last March my sister bought this particular model and the transmission, it moves like butter. It's so smooth, so silent, and it's such a joy, such a delight to drive. My brother was so very happy with that particular experience. So he also bought the same car, same model, but his is very rough, very uncomfortable, and not the same thing, not the same experience that you get with the Japanese. So I also have tried it out with others. Whoever has got a Japanese transmission, I've actually test driven their car and I found a replication of the experience I get from my sister's car. And wherever it is not having a Japanese transmission, that particular feeling is not the same. So it all boiled down to the client having understood that there is a significant difference in the driving experience of a car featuring the Japanese transmission as against the American transmission. So the plant head was called again. So he challenged the group to say, send as many inspectors as you like from whichever independent units as you like. Let them draw at random and check every one of the transmissions that is there in our plant and find out if there is even one which is out of specifications. So they went over there, they checked it, everything was perfect. They were not making much headway. Is it just a kind of a mental block or some kind of a psychological situation rather than a physical situation on the ground? The person heading finance came up with a bright idea. He asked for the warranty replacement costs of this particular model, and he wanted to know for the past 6 months or 9 months or 1 year or whatever be the time period, all the costs involved on this particular model, please segregate them as the cost involved wherever the car featured the American transmission, and then compare it with the costs involved, the warranty replacement cost with the transmission featuring the Japanese origin, cars featuring the Japanese transmission. And that information slowly percolated down, came in, was collated, analyzed and reviewed. The warranty costs for the American transmission was this high, and the corresponding cost for the Japanese was this much. So there was a very big difference in terms of warranty outflow in terms of the American manufacturer as compared with the Japanese manufacturer. Now they had to investigate this further. A consignment of transmissions had just arrived from Japan. So they went across over there and decided to check those transmissions. And then they came up with this answer. The American transmission, if the length was mentioned as 300 mm and the tolerance was mentioned as plus minus 3 mm, all American measurements were 300 mm plus minus 3 mm. They were very much meeting specifications, satisfying specifications. In contrast, when you checked it with the Japanese, when it said 300 mm plus minus 3 mm, it was 300 mm plus minus 1.5 mm, never more than that, plus minus 1.5 mm. So what were the Japanese doing? They were not meeting specifications. They were not satisfying specifications. They were exceeding specifications. The distribution, the variability in the Japanese transmission was narrow, whereas the distribution of the American transmission was the tails were on the rails. The left tail was on the left rail of lower specification limit, and the right tail was on the right rail sitting on the upper specification limit. They were meeting specifications. All their population was within those specifications, but the Japanese were well within, way away from the upper specification limit or lower specification limit. Here we see a pictorial representation and the new definition of quality. Modern definition of quality. Quality is inversely proportional to variability. You can see the Japanese variability, you can see where the target is, where the lower specification limit is, and where the upper specification limit is. And in contrast, you can see the spread of the US transmission manufacturing plant's performance. You can see on the left-hand side the United States warranty costs and compare that with Japanese warranty costs. Now, this definition has been given by a German. The composite product characteristics of engineering and manufacture that determine the degree to which the product in use will meet the expectations of the customer. So he has used the word the degree. In other words, quality is not about an absolute, it is about a relative characteristic. How close to target are you? So the pharmaceutical industry, in its ICH Q8, quality by design, the authors have revisited quality and revised the definition to say degree to which a set of inherent properties of a product, system or process fulfills requirements. So we have an answer. If you say quality is fit for use, there is no motivation to become fitter. If you say satisfy the specifications or satisfy the need or meet the intended purpose or serve the intended purpose, there is no incentive for you to improve. And which is what the pharmaceutical industry has been doing till today, regardless of process validation or no validation. You have been living in the belief that as long as you meet your specifications, your process is okay, your product is okay, and you were totally unaware of the possibility that there could be undetected OOS items of your origin in the market that could place your company at risk, could put the patient at severe risk. The new definition talks about controlling variability. Quality is inversely proportional to variability. So if your mean is 100 and your upper specification limit and lower specification limit are 110 and 90, or if you are an API manufacturer, 103 and 97. These are your upper and lower specification limits. If your tail is on the rail, you're meeting specifications. But if your tail is tucked away from the rails towards the center and there's a lot of buffer space on either side, the lower specification border is far away and upper specification is far away, the more clustered it is, the less the variability, the better the quality, the better your process. That is what you should now aspire for. That is what QBD is talking about. That is what the regulators expect of you in the years ahead.